Donald Trump may no longer care about the alt-right, but I sincerely do, and I want to tell you about a key online figure of theirs, the hero, visionary, and shape-shifting one-show presenter, Alex Jones, whose brain is comprised of slow-motion footage of bald eagles, the sound of assault rifles, and unceasing paranoia. He has this website called InfoWars, and his plan seems to be to wage war on all forms of information. And in his videos, he appears constantly on the cusp of a major breakthrough and heart attack. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a heart attack, but he says, "I've got all the facts here, guys, it's all here," while shuffling through some sheets of paper, and they'll all just be printouts of articles from his own website, which is like a child trying to convince their mum that Spider-Man is real, with their proof being a picture of Spider-Man they've just drawn in crayon. And obviously, any self-respecting parent should say, "That's bullshit, son, that's just complete bullshit." But many people are putting Alex Jones's crazy crayon drawings up on their fridge right away, just next to whichever signed photograph of Mitt Romney they have on rotation that week. And the longer people base their political assertions on the unfettered imagination of someone like Alex Jones, the more difficult it's going to be for them to rediscover their sense of rational analysis. Now, generally, counter-narratives rise from an initially and at times reasonable questioning of the mainstream narrative, but you'd think that then they'd be contingent on at least the most cursory knowledge of that mainstream narrative they're trying to question. But the alt-right are now so paranoid that they find it more convenient just to discount what the mainstream media is saying before they've even heard what the mainstream media is saying. And that kind of fudged a priori deduction just saves them time, which they can spend on otherwise their hobbies, which include listening to Guns N' Roses and wanking themselves into oblivion. Now, reasoning with Big Al or any of his followers, it's going to be really difficult, kind of like trying to have a conversation with a permanently running, really loud dirt bike that's just flinging shit up into your face. But I think whether the mainstream media had a role in fostering the conditions that gave rise to this or not, they mustn't be drawn into trying to fight this shit with fire, otherwise political discourse just degenerates further into a sort of series of juvenile doorstep pranks.
Political upsets this year, such as Brexit and Trump's victory, have left the liberal metropolitan elite scrambling for any explanation except for taking the blame upon themselves. They have called these results the acts of racists or bigots, the results of conspiracy theories and misinformation, but they refuse to put them in the context of a larger political movement sweeping the Western world. There is a specter over Europe, and the only redeeming feature of it is that it's not communism. We had an old political paradigm which has collapsed, which asks questions about social issues such as abortion or gay rights, and economic issues such as redistribution and regulation. The new political paradigm, however, asks questions about openness and identity. And if it's going to be solved by more liberal-minded people, we need to acknowledge its causes and search for practical solutions. To understand that this is a wider political movement, we just need to look to Europe. Elections in Austria, in the Netherlands, in France, and in Germany may lead to a sweeping of far-right parties in parliaments and presidencies. This is very worrying for the EU as a whole, and it might collapse even before Britain has time to negotiate. That is a worrying thing, and that is a reason we have to be concerned with why this is occurring. The old paradigm was formed by a contest between social democrats, who were economically interventionist yet socially liberal, and on the other side, free market conservatives, who were socially conservative but economically liberal. However, since the collapse of the Cold War, both sides have been moving to the center. Under Clinton and Blair, economic liberalization was embraced by the left, and here in the UK, for example, conservatives embraced things like gay marriage. Since they moved to the center, they left fringes on both the right and the left to get more extreme. The financial crisis empowered these fringes because people could blame economic failures and social failures on the liberal metropolitan elite themselves. This empowered groups that now are called national collectivists by my friend Stephen Davies at the Institute of Economic Affairs, which are both socially interventionist and economically interventionist. They ask new questions that weren't asked before. They ask questions such as, is globalization good? To which the response by them is that we need to preserve national culture and national tradition. We need to close our borders, and we need to embrace tariffs. The other question they ask is questions of identity. They ask, is identity prescribed or is it chosen? The mainstream believes that identity is chosen and individualistic, But to them, identity is prescribed either by nationality, race, or ethnicity. This kind of view of identity is embraced by both the far right and the far left. In Europe, they believe in preserving their traditions on the far right. And in the UK, you can see far left parties saying that certain ethnic groups need to be treated unequally with the aims of making them equal. These kinds of questions were not asked before, but need to be asked now, and our answers to them need to be very, very clear and consistent. The left throughout the world has done a failing in my view. They've been moving further to the left to try to maintain ideological purity rather than making a pragmatic opposition. In this new paradigm, the people who are most lost are the old right, who cannot embrace the economic interventionism of national collectivists, who see people like Wilders and Le Pen further to the left than Corbyn, since they embrace the nationalization of industry, the government direction of the economy, tariff barriers, taxes, and regulations. Since they can't embrace this, they need to find a new political home. It is my view that the right wing will move with a new coalition in the left wing to embrace individualism, to embrace globalization, to embrace this kind of openness and economic liberalism that's lost on modern times. Unless this kind of coalition is built, the national collectivists will only get stronger and stronger. It is in our best interests and the best interests of the political elite around the world to acknowledge the real causes behind this political movement and not blame it on things such as racism or misinformation. The more you look down upon your opposition, the less they are interested in voting for you. And that's why I believe this movement, however, will last for a significant amount of time.